Star Trek Picard, Episode 8. We're almost to the end. There's two more episodes to go for this season is what it looks like. Next week is going to be a part 1 as I snuck a peek. Okay, so as we like to do here, let's get started with the good stuff. The direction in this one is very tight and fast-paced. That's a nice change of pace for a while. Also, as you can see on the screen, we have a visit from 7 of 9, who was from a totally different quadrant than Picard, so they only know each other through legend. Anyways, she's in this one. There are no other returning characters from Star Trek The Next Generation. We do have the Romulan who wore sunglasses last week, which was extremely peculiar looking. She's back with a circle, it looked like a coven of witches via Romulans. That was weird. If you were expecting for the show to get any more masculine, nope. It's still, I don't want to say 100% feminine-centric, but it's pretty close to 100% feminine-centric. Picard has a few lines. He's mostly, again, guest starring in his own episode. The fellow with the sword, who is the butt of many jokes, except for last episode where he was barely even a part of it. He's back, and in this one, but they just have no character continuity on him. In this one, he plays kind of like a simpleton. It was really weird. Oh, let's see. The android girl. Her story is getting closer to being revealed, so it's getting a little more interesting. The blonde lady, who the critical drinker likes to point out, has her eyes too close. I'm pretty sure that's not her fault. Anyways, her character got to cry more this episode. She spends a lot of time on the show crying. The lady with the curly hair, her character was a little bit more balanced than last week, since she was totally written in a most ridiculous manner last week with inconsistencies. This week, she's a little more consistent, but kind of felt a lot like a Doctor Who episode where she's just thinking out loud a lot and bumping into all this stuff. Now, if you're a fan of the Flash, the modern one, not the 1991, you will know that they have a fellow on there who plays himself from many different universes, and he enjoys it a lot, and he gets really silly with it. This one does the same thing with all the hollow characters of the captain of the ship, and it felt very much like I was watching an episode of The Flash, which is why I'm bringing it up. And the same thing, where it looks like he's having a good time. Okay, so, is the show getting any better? Not really. I mean, last week was probably the best just because you had the Next Generation characters and you got to fill in some blanks of what's happened over the years. Again, this one felt more paced, and that was appreciated and nice. But still, the overall story is just so agenda-oriented, with making sure that all the women of all the different shades of flesh tone appear, and that they're always in charge. And if the men get any lines at all, they're serving merely as mild capacitors, for lack of a better word. It just feels like watching the really bad episodes of 1970s sci-fi, where in the future the women take control over everything and the men are subjugated to being essentially slaves for adult pleasure. And they're kind of doing the same thing here with a totally different type of cheese factor. The 70s cheese factor was, to use a modern term, cringe. And now it's not as, it's more subtle. Oh, and the other thing, they are still pushing all of the heavy-duty cuss words. So many heavy-duty cuss words in this. And of course, since the women are ruling the show, the potty mouths are the women. It's just tacky and so out of step. Last night I had the pleasure of watching Star Trek the original series from season 2, where Captain Kirk and Spock find out that one of Kirk's old professors has gone to a planet and somehow became the Fjord. And he's like, whoa, what's up with that? And the reason I watched that episode was because it ties in so much with Joe Biden and how Joe Biden is like the fellow from that Star Trek episode that I'm talking about from season 2, the original series. And you find out that Kirk's old professor is completely drugged and doped up and he's not saying anything. In fact, they even use the mic to cover his mouth because he's so programmed to say what he wants. And that's kind of what's happening with Biden at this time. But that's beside the point. What is the point is that original episode of Star Trek was so refreshing to watch because it reminds viewers of why people fell in love with Star Trek. The camaraderie between Kirk and Spock, the humor between Kirk and Spock, and McCoy to be sure, was just fun. And here's a serious episode where they've got this emulation of Germany in the 1930s and all of its negatives. And it's just funny because William Shatner and Leonard Nimoy are both of the Jewish persuasion, and they're wearing that little India thing on their arm, that the India Good Lucks logo that Mr. Adolf borrowed, much to their chagrin. Anyways, and it was just a wonderful episode. If you haven't seen it, it's a great one to check out. And it's, I'm watching it many, many years after it was created, and just loving every minute of it. It wasn't dated at all. And these shows, the Star Trek Picard, yeah, they're going to definitely be a little on the dated side. So that's all I got to say about that. Thanks for checking in for the review. I will do my best to stick and get to the last two. Sorry this one came out late. I've been busy with the same thing everybody else on planet Earth is busy. I'm not going to say the word so YouTube doesn't hopefully ding at least this video. But it's impossible to do a video currently without mentioning that word. But I will, because y'all know what I'm talking about. Thanks for watching. We will see you in the future. The future that hopefully isn't dominated by one gender or the other.